Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games and day 28 of the 30-day challenge. Most of the day I spent carving the rocks and getting those in place, and so we left off here yesterday with just the blank canvas to work with, and then by the end of today I managed to get all the rocks carved and lots of other pieces cut out ready to glue on. I started off just adding some old bits of spare polystyrene, and then I was going to clad that with more like carved rocks, but I just didn't like how this was going and I just thought it wasn't going to look quite right. So I ditched that idea and I came up with something else. So I got rid of all these polystyrene pieces, and then I thought it'd be cool just to cut out some pink foam and make some big tall spiky rocks. And so I got the wire cutter out and then got busy cutting this out. Obviously, if you've never used this stuff before, just be careful. There's a lot of fumes that can come off it which are toxic, so just follow all the safety precautions for that. And so here I'm just roughly cutting out some big long triangles, and these are going to form the spikes. I'm speeding this up. This isn't like real time. It's quite a slow process with this cutter I've got. And so this is just the rough shape, and then I just made a few of those and then just started placing them around where I thought they would look cool. So it's going to be quite dramatic and quite spiky. This is the top of the mountain range after all, so I wanted it to be really like representing that as the building's coming through it. So I did a bunch of those, played around with different ways of placing them, and then I thought it'd be fun to make like a claw kind of shape at the bottom, and so I started carving that out. Then I cut it in half because I wanted it to like wrap around a little platform that I'm going to build to put some guns on it or something like that. And so I just angled those slightly. Then I also angled the bottom of it so it would curve out and then the claw would curve back in, so I made sure it went flush to the ground there. And then just with some cocktail sticks I just tested that out, and so that kind of worked. That's what I was looking for. This is going to be like 3 spikes wrapped around, then I'll do another one round the side. And so it's just a lot of time today was really just spent experimenting and playing around with different ideas. I also wanted to make this doorway in the front a little bit more interesting, so I made some triangle cuts, and then that's made it a little bit better. It's more prominent now, and so I can put a little walkway at the top or a gun placement, something like that. So that's going to just make it a little bit chunkier and look a lot more like an armored door. So once I was happy with the general layout, now it was time to texture the rocks. So I'm just going in with that hot wire cutter and just going in at all different angles and making it look as natural as I could, and then added some texture to those rocks. There's lots of gaps as well where the joins meet, but that's all going to be covered up with some filler later on and a bit more carving. I also wanted to put a rock underneath this uppermost chamber up here, so I took a big chunky piece, just offered it up, and then just took my knife, and there's not pretty here, I'm just hacking away at it. You're not going to see this, so as long as it fits, that's all that matters. So I'm just chopping away at that polystyrene, and then once I know that's going to fit in place, I just trimmed that rock a little bit. Again, anything I'm not going to see, I'm just using my knife, which saves a lot of time. I'm only using the hot cutter just for the rock side that you're going to see. Then some hot glue on that, and then that's going to hold it nicely underneath the chamber. So I put it in, let it set, and then that sets really quick. This hot glue is so strong as well, but I just put a little bit of rough piece of foam at the back just to help it out a little bit and give it more to stick to. Then I went back to the rocky claw thing at the bottom and then just put a piece of foam in place to represent this platform that I wanted to build. And then I had to think about how to fill in those gaps. So I really want these claws to stand out. So I just took lots of rough pieces and was just thinking about how I could fit those. Then I found this bit and just stuck it on as another little platform. It just seemed to look like it fitted right there. And I went back over to the other side and started cutting out the rocks there as well. So I'm just doing this. I don't use a ruler for stuff like this, just like use my knife and just rough it out, and then use that wire cutter, again speeding it up, just to cut it in shape, and then pop that in place, and then that fits nice and snug, and then just add in the texture and everything to it. But once I was happy where all these rocks were going to be placed, then texturized them, and that really made a difference. Added some extra little pieces here and there as well, really made a difference, and started taking it away from just big chunks of foam to what could start to look like rocks. And then this little bit is going to support another gun placement, a little bit more on the side just to add some extra interest there too. Next I moved on to some black foam. This is the thinner foam, and this is going to be great for these platforms. So I just cut out a rough shape that I want it to look like. So this is going to be nice and angled, so opposed to those natural looking rocks. And then once I had that in place, I had a good idea of all the gaps that need to be filled. So I took some of these triangle pieces, made loads of them, and then they were going to fit in these gaps. And I thought I could set them just back a little bit so the claws really stand out. So I cut them all into 3 pieces, and then that gave loads of texture, cut up a ton of them, and then all of those then were just getting stuck in, and I was just building it up from the inside so those claws really stood out. But then I ran out of hot glue, which was a total disaster. And I tried it a little bit with Gorilla wood glue, which stuck it and held it pretty strong, but it's certainly not going to be strong enough. So I've ordered some hot glue, which will come tomorrow now. And yeah, I can get back to gluing. So I did my best, though, just to get it in place with that Gorilla Glue and built it all up. And I'll go back in with a hot glue when it comes and make sure it's nice and secure. So that's where I had to leave it at that stage, which was a real shame. I finished up a little bit more on the door, just cut out the pieces, and then I'll wait to glue those on tomorrow. But I really needed to get some painting done, or at least some filler done today. So that's going to set me back a little bit. So I think I'm just going to continue right through the weekend and make this a 31-day challenge, just so I can get this done properly without having to rush it. So tomorrow is going to be gluing, but I made a little bit of prep, and I cut out all the little gum placements and platforms so they can just be glued together and stuck on. I also just cut out some random shapes just to put around to add some interest to the blank white pieces. And so that's the stage I'm at now. The rocks are pretty much done, and I've just got to do some painting and filling once everything's glued on. And I've got this powder filler, which is going to take 24 hours to dry, and I've got this paint, which is 24 hours to dry. So looking at tomorrow, it's going to be finish that gluing of all the different pieces, add some interesting shapes, and then once I've done that, I'll use the filler to fill up any gaps that we can see, then leave it to completely set for that 24 hours. Next day, do all the painting, let that set, and then the final day, which is now going to be day 31, I'll do the spray can and some dry brushing, and then that's going to be pretty much the finishing stage for that. So I'm going to take advantage of tomorrow. I'm not going to have an awful lot to do for it, to be fair. Once I've done the gluing and filling, that's pretty much it. Then I'm going to start work on the other terrain and get all that painted up. So then that's going to make sure that can get done as well. Because the final day, again, just spray canning and dry brushing isn't going to take long. So yeah, I should be able to get all the terrain done that I looked at a couple of days ago. So not as far as I thought I would be this time yesterday, but I'm happy I spent the time making these carved rocks and going for this like claw at the bottom. I think that's going to add a lot of interest to the piece once it's painted. But thanks again for following along with the series. We're nearly at an end now. I can't believe it's been 4 weeks solid working on this project, but I'm having a great time. Building this terrain is really fun, so a good way to end the challenge. But thanks again. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'd like to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who make these daily videos possible, and if you're interested in joining the community, it'd be awesome to see you there, and I'll put a link for that in the description down below.